Chapter 7 is about construction and scale drawings, and 7.1 is going to teach us about adjacent and vertical angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that share a common side and have the same vertex. A vertex is a point and a shared point, so that's our vertex right there. Okay, so let's look. We have angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. And to make them adjacent, they have to share the same vertex, which they all do. It's highlighted in red. And they have to have a common side. So I'm going to say that angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent because they have this common side. Okay, they share a side. I could also say that 1 and 4 are adjacent. Angle 4 and angle 3 are adjacent. Angle 3 and angle 2 are adjacent. They just have to share a common side. Vertical angles, on the other hand, are two angles that are opposite angles and formed by the intersection of two lines. So again, I have my vertex. Okay, and like I said that 1 and 2 are adjacent, 1 and 3 are vertical. Okay, angles 1 and angle 3 are vertical. They are opposite angles. Okay, congruent angles are angles that have the same measure. Okay, vertical angles are congruent. So that means that angle 1 and 3 are vertical and congruent. And how we show congruency on angles is we'll put like this little arch. So I can put this little arch here and say that angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical, also congruent. Okay, I can also say that angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent. And I'm going to put two lines on them just to show the pairs. The one lines pair up together and the two lines pair up together. So angle 1 and 3 are vertical, which also means that they are congruent. Same with angle 2 and angle 4. Those are also vertical and congruent angles. Now let's talk about naming angles. Okay, when you name an angle, the vertex always has to be in the middle. So put the vertex in the middle. So when I name an angle, I always start with this little angle sign. Okay, and then I'm going to look at an angle. Let's say I want to name this one right here. I'm going to name this angle. So I could name it ABF. Okay, B is my vertex, so that has to be in the middle. Or I could have named it FBA. That is the same angle. Okay, it doesn't matter which point you put first. You could put A first or F first. But B has to remain in the middle. So that's how we name an angle. So this chapter may ask you to name a pair of adjacent angles. So I'm going to look at this picture and name a pair of adjacent angles. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one that I was just talking about. And I'm going to say that angle ABF, and I'm going to do this one right here, angle FBE are adjacent. Now, I could have done several different ones. That's just one set of examples of adjacent angles in this image that we have right now. Now, if I didn't even have this image and all I saw was this right here, could I figure out whether or not these angles were adjacent or not? Well, remember, adjacent angles share a common side. Okay, so I can tell that these are adjacent by just looking at the names of them and seeing that this angle has a B and an F, and this angle has a B and an F. It doesn't matter the order of them. Okay, so I can tell that these are adjacent because two of the letters in their names are similar to one another or are the same. Now let's see if I can find a set of vertical angles using this image. Okay, so I'm going to do, again, angle ABF. Okay, so I'm going to do this angle again, ABF. And I'm going to see that its vertical angle is this one right here. And angle CBD are vertical angles. And remember that because they're vertical, that also means that they are congruent and they have the same angle. The second part of this chapter is going to have you find the value of x using what you know about adjacent and vertical angles. So here's an example image, and they want you to find the value of x. Well, I can tell by the image that these are vertical angles. Vertical angles are opposite angles. I also know that vertical angles are congruent. Okay, and congruent angles mean that they are the same value. So if the opposite angle of x is 70, then that must mean that x equals 70 as well. Here's another example of finding the value of x, and this time they're going to use what we know about adjacent angles. The first thing I want you to notice is this right here. What does that symbol mean? When you see angles and you see this little thing right there, what does that mean? Well, that means it's a right angle. And I know that right angles equal 90 degrees. Okay, so what they're showing is two angles. This angle is 31 degrees, and the second angle is x plus 4. But all together, they equal a right angle. So I'm going to set up an equation. Okay, I'm going to have 31 plus x plus 4 equals 90. Right? And then I can just solve the equation. I know that these parentheses right now don't really mean anything, so I can get rid of those. Okay, so I have 31 and 4, which is 35, plus x equals 90. Okay, then I got to get that 35 on the other side, so I'm going to subtract 35. And I'm going to get x equals 55. So I know that x equals 55 degrees. The last section of 7.1 is going to teach us how to construct angles using a protractor. Okay, so I have my protractor. Notice I have a straight line with a ruler. It measures from 0 to 6 inches. And then I have this arc, okay? And on the outside, it goes from 0 to 180 left to right. And on the inside, it goes from 0 to 180 on the other direction, okay? So depending on whether you're marking here, this could be 120 or it could be 60, okay? Depending on if you want an obtuse or an acute angle. And remember that obtuse angles are greater than 90 degrees, and acute angles are less than 90 degrees, okay? So here is a situation that they have asked us to create. Draw a pair of vertical angles with a measure of 40 degrees. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw a line. A little bit better there. I'm going to draw a straight line, and then I'm going to put this dot right on the end of that line, and I'm going to line up those black lines, this little black line with the line I created, so that I know I'm right at my straight line, and I've got my dot right here. And I'm going to find 40 degrees, which is this right here. Okay, I could mark it out here at 140. It's still 40 degrees because it's an acute angle. Okay, and then I'm going to use my straight edge, and I'm going to line these up. Okay, so I now have a 40-degree angle. Okay, but it wants me to draw a pair of vertical angles with the measure of 40 degrees. So what I really should have done is extend this past my straight line. So I'm going to draw this, and I'm going to extend it past my straight line. And I'm also going to grab the straight line that I drew and extend it as well. Okay, this doesn't really look like it's lined up. Let me fix that a little bit. That's why we use a pencil. Draw that. There you go. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so now I have another 40-degree angle right here. So the scenario was draw a pair of vertical angles that measure 40 degrees. So I have vertical angles, they're opposite of one another, and both of them are 40 degrees.